Well, good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? The weather's cooled down, fall in session, it feels like it. And I will call the meeting of the East Porter County School Corporation work session to order here. So if we could all rise for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So now can we have a moment of silence? Thank you. Before we start our public input on agenda items, I just want to remind the public that meetings of the school board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the school corporation in a public setting. That business includes budget, oversight, approval of personnel reports, policy development, and the direction of the school corporation. And we're going to take a little time now to hear from our community as we are now beginning the public comment portion of the meeting. We welcome your comments and value your input. However, please note that this is a school board meeting held in public, not a school board meeting held with the public. The distinction means that we welcome your input. We are here to conduct board business and not answer questions or interact in back and forth dialogue with the community. Rather, this public portion of the meeting provides an opportunity for the community to provide comments on agenda items. If you have a specific questions, comments, or concerns outside of the agenda, you are encouraged to email Dr. Case or any other board member to allow them the opportunity to address your concerns. Here's a few ground rules. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If multiple individuals are here to speak on the same subject, we encourage you to select one representative to speak for the group. Any derogatory remarks or direct disrespect towards any board member, staff, teacher, or administrator, or student will not be tolerated. In the event of such behavior, you will forfeit your time and may be asked to leave the meeting. Please be aware that personnel matters will not be addressed during this meeting, as discussion of specific employees are not appropriate in a public forum. I just have one person who is listed to speak, Jonathan Pratt.
Yes.
From COUTS.
Thank you. I have 2 little boys at COUTS Elementary. One is a 2nd grader this year. One is a 5th grader this year. I'm kind of interested and curious about what the final numbers look like for COUTS, because at least for my 2nd grader, I know that there was kind of up in the air that there were some students who did not, there were more students who did not return than was originally anticipated. You know, when we're talking about budget and improving the COUTS school here, the question becomes, how do we grow as a K through 12 campus when we're having people leaving through the back door as well? I know of several people who have left either to, I guess we say, try homeschooling as an alternative, or I know of one who is trying Christian school. My second grader's best friend is actually not here this year because of that. And, you know, last year, it was a bit tough for my fourth grader. They were down to two teachers. I realize we don't always have the luxury of 3 sections for each class when numbers don't make sense, but it was 26 and 27 students. His classroom teacher did the best that she could. I think my son got a good education last year, but it had its struggles. And it's those types of struggles, the systemic struggles, that I hear complaints from some of these parents who have gone the other way. To an extent, in some settings, I've tried to encourage them to not go the route of leaving. But some of their concerns are very legitimate and are ones that I'm hoping that in the coming year in particular, the administration as well as the board can work to kind of allay some of those fears. I think especially on the Couts campus, there's this concern that things are not headed in a good direction overall. I'm not here on a day-to-day basis, but that's the kind of, I guess it's the kind of gossip, that's the kind of issue that needs to be addressed and can't just be brushed aside as far as saying, well, you can't make everyone happy. Some people leave, some people go. I think we need to take seriously when people vote with their feet and leave the district, that there are problems that need to be looked into and that there need to be resolutions that need to be sought after. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments and some valid questions there, and we'll get to those numbers. Thank you, sir. To see that was the only one to speak this evening. Any other member? We'll see none, and we'll close the public input on the agenda items. And next, this is a work session, so we're not voting on anything this evening. It's for discussion for purposes. And we do have a policy considerations. So Dr. Case, I'm going to turn things back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. McFerrin. First policy that we're asking the board to look at and to get some input as we put together so that before our first reading has to do with the exposure control plan and the hepatitis B vaccinations. So currently, in working with Julie Slavens from ISBA, who is the person that helps put the school board policies together, she has told me that we don't necessarily need a policy over this particular part. However, we are required to have a response plan to infectious diseases such as hepatitis B. And so it has been the past tradition of East Porter to have the response in the policy. Some of the challenges that we are having with the current setup of the policy is it had been our intent and goal to go through, and if people needed the vaccinations or to get the hepatitis B shot, we would do it through our clinic. However, our clinic will not allow people who are not part of our healthcare insurance plan to get those shots there, because the clinic is run by the insurance trust, and so therefore the only people that have access to the clinic are people who are members of the trust. And so we are working on, and that has created a couple of challenges for us, which brought our attention going, yeah, we might need to revisit and look at the policy because we want to make sure that our people are getting the shots if they need it. And at the same time, we want to do it at no cost to them. So some of the recommendations that Ms. Slavens has recommended is that we could reimburse our people. The challenge, though, then is trying to figure out who, what, when, and how that all plays out. So there are some eliminations with the changes in Indiana code at the bottom, but the part of the language that we're still working on and didn't know if the board had preference is to try to figure out how to get the the shots for our employees that are not covered by the insurance trust. Because what we're looking at is if they're in the insurance, clinic is number one. The other one is if they're not, sending them to the health department and then reimbursing them for the costs that we would do at the health department. Because there's concerns of just giving it freelance to go to any of the different providers. And that way we're ensuring that everybody's getting what they need and just having those as our two options. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
I don't have any other questions or concerns. This would be for a first reading at our meeting on, I believe it's maybe 8. No, that's not it. So I wanna meet sooner, September. I thought it was all wrong time. And the 15th, correct? Correct. Got it. I think we should, anyway,
It is September the 8th.
All right then.
Do we have any kind of numbers on how many employees that we'd be sending to the health department?
No, we haven't had very many people take us up on this. As a matter of fact, a lot of schools don't even have, at least, and Mrs. Nieves can probably talk to this better than I can, because she's talked with other school districts. They don't even have anything like this in place for their employees to go out and get that.
I think the challenge is that even if they go to the health clinic, they're still going to ask for their insurance. I don't know how you get around.
Can they do cash payment? Because, you know, for reimbursement, can you walk in and, again, I've not done that side again, I'm in my insurance card. But I just wondered if they could be like, you know, like, that would be cash paying, and then again, the reimbursement comes. As opposed to, I know it's hard though, the US thing, and you feel like, well, I have insurance, you know, but if we're doing it work related, yeah, that'd be interesting. And
But that's something that we might be able to set an arrangement with the health department. Maybe they can just directly bill us.
That would be ideal.
That'll be
Take the burden off so we don't have to worry about.
correct. And then they can just directly bill us.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, file for review is the investment policy.
So I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Nieves. We're not necessarily looking at any changes, just when we go out for different bonds or have audits, they always ask us if we have discussed the investment policy. And this way we can tell them, yes.
You kind of said it all.
Sorry.
It's just, we just want you to review the policy and put up our financial goals for the year.
Okay. Next is the bad checks, uncollectible debt.
I will do better on this one. Mrs. Nieves.
So this is kind of just the review of our debt collections, and I'm just trying to get your feelings on collections and small claims. I know that's a conversation we've had in the past. We've not really set limits and amounts on what is worth going to small claims versus collections. Last year, I think we sent 30 people, and I don't think we collected maybe one. So that is not a very good return on our investment there. So I don't know your feelings on looking at a different company or just going the small claims route.
What company did you use last time to do that?
RMP.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I got a letter that said that I had debt and then I didn't. So it was like, and I believe that happened to several students, like several parents. Maybe it was not last year, but at one point it was.
Yeah, that would be, they always said it's the people that I give their information to. So.
Yeah, there was some kind of mix up with that. I mean, it ended up getting cleared up, but I didn't realize that you guys used a third party for that.
Well, a little history on that is there was a time where we didn't. And then there was concern that there was a tremendous amount of outstanding debt. And so the board charged us to try to find a way to close that gap a little bit. And over the past few years, I will tell you, it's getting harder to collect it.
Are we seeing an increase in the debt? Or is it, seems to be
No,
about the
because we don't
same?
have as many fees that we charge any longer, right? It's mostly sports related, drug testing, $20 transportation fee, or things that are from old debt, that just carries from year to year. And so we don't, we spend our most effort on people who are inactive or graduating. But kind of just the process of trying to collect that through our treasurers, and we kind of reduced the amount of hours and treasurers in the corporation. So just kind of the process, so you know, is that, they first send emails and try to collect that way, and then they'll send letters, several letters, usually by the time the end of the year comes, and then the person is inactive or graduated, then it comes here and, I try to collect that way through our office. If we can't collect it here, then it's the R&P is what we did last year.
I think the process is good. It's unfortunate that we can't collect some debt, but I think what you're doing in the policy as written here is a good one.
I think the time of, or not, now that we don't charge as many fees, people think, well, I have to pay the stuff in the past, but that still is things that were owed at that time. So we have a lot of those, not a lot, but the people that don't pay, a lot of them have that thought.
Is there a threshold that we have? Sorry, I can't remember if there's one. Like, is it 13 cents? Is this treated the same as if it was $25? It seemed if it was $100.
It's not, we don't have a threshold at all, no. But I think that may be something that is necessary. I think when I sent them last year, it's so much per letter to send it out, right? And then a collection percentage if they collect. So I think they won't even, I don't remember the exact amount, but he told me they're not even gonna really try to besides sending letters if it's under a certain dollar amount.
So that's for the RP.
Are there more than one collection agencies that we have?
There's Trex is the other thing I've heard, which is more of not a collection agency, but it means to impose, or if you have a refund on your taxes, you can collect it off of that refund. It's limited to like, if you get a refund on your taxes, try to collect through that. That's the only other option I've heard that other schools use. Other people do use R&D and have had kind of the same results.
Are there thresholds that other schools use that you know of?
I can find out.
It would seem diligent to know. if there's-
Generally, when we get to that, I know when, like, the end of the year's coming, there's a couple of kids that have, over $500, and those are the ones that you just wouldn't say, hey, it's better to do small things than try to do that.
With trust, is there a fee to the district? Or do we have to did we pay into it? Is it some sort of
I don't
contract?
think so.
No,
It's
it's
just
just
a-
what we send to the.
Even at $400 and $500, it is going to small claims, you got a filing fee that's usually around $100. I regardless of the school corporation or municipality that we work with, trying collection companies is probably the most cost efficient route, even at the rate of return. It doesn't make sense to pay our legal team to do that stuff. It wouldn't make sense. So I think these are the best routes. Oftentimes we advise, send them letters, but don't file suit because you're throwing good money after bad money.
It's kind of
And there shouldn't be as much new bad debt because
Right.
you can't do textbook.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But the amount of time that treasurers spend on it, the principals spend on it, when it comes to us and our office spends on it, it adds up quickly, just in our manpower trying to collect those.
The problem is,
I asked you to.
if we act like we're not serious about collecting anything, then nobody's gonna pay.
Every nurse is not taking care of their business. Right.
Do we have financial assistance when needed? Like, can people apply, okay, I can't pay this right now, but I need like $10.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the policy that we can create a payment plan or if it comes to, a hardship. We've asked for some people to have their debt forgiven if it's a hardship situation.
But it seems like if you could come up with a threshold, unless we have a threshold in mind, it would be good. as I recall from a few years ago, there is no consequence to the student as far as getting a diploma. Correct? Is that not correct? The state,
Legal for us to
right,
hold
the state, yeah. Because I'm pretty sure we used to be able to do that, but we can't anymore. Okay.
Do we have all the questions? Kim's getting the answers. We'll have first reading September the 8th. Student meal account.
This kind of goes along with the same topic. We just wanted you to review the student meal account policy. It does say the limit there is $7 for a paid student. That's really 2 meals now with the increases that have come up. So don't know your thoughts on leaving it that amount or increasing that amount.
My recommendation would be to increase that amount to like 10 something or even 15, simply to try to show a little bit of grace and get kids, even if they don't have it, we do provide them some kind of food, like cheese sandwiches and different things, just so that they have something to put in their stomachs.
Do you think it would be helpful to raise it to like the amount of a week in case somebody's waiting for a paycheck to come in or something before they can replenish it? Or is that too high?
That would be close to $20.
Yeah.
I don't know, that might be too much, but.
And with that being said too, we do have some people in groups that periodically stop in to pay off food service debts to, yeah, just to make sure that kids are always having something to eat.
Another question I had as a parent, I just wondered if the low balance, I know it's like $2, which used to be almost near a new lunch. I would like it to see at 4, because then my students still get one more lunch and I have another day to remember.
Sure.
So I would just like the low balance on getting alerted a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So they can have one more meal and then, oh yeah, I'm off to write the check. So to $4 would be fine with me, but I would.
And I agree with raising the threshold from 7. I'm open to discussion on how much.
I have a question about this line in here that says if the student repeatedly comes to school with no lunch, no money, food service employees must report this to Child Protective Services and the school principal. This may be a sign of abuse or neglect. Could we put something in there that we would try to reach out to them first before doing some community support, before jumping to referring them to the Department of Child Services?
I think that's in there that
Is
the
it?
cafeteria manager is responsible for reaching out to the parents first.
It's the fourth paragraph on the second page.
I mean, I didn't love that sentence either, and I think, I mean, that something that is required? Because I feel like I don't think that is necessarily a sign of abuse or neglect, but.
I think you get into the gray area of duty to report, and I think a repeated pattern, that's why, school's gonna reach out to them first. But if you've got a consistent pattern, obviously it's not like physical abuse, but it can be potentially a form of, and I wouldn't want any of the administrators or anybody in working in food services to be on the wrong side of that, if they didn't report something. And you go maybe 2 weeks without, the newspaper gets a hold of that, the prosecutor gets a hold of that. I mean, that's a problem.
But the school would still be feeding them. It's not
Sure.
like they wouldn't be being fed.
Sure. What if we go through and just switch the 2 paragraphs?
That's what I would recommend.
So just,
so that they're
because
not.
that way it flows better, saying that we're doing the parent first as opposed to that. It still says the exact same thing, we're just reordering those 2
I
statements.
think that would make a big difference. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, more questions, comments?
I was looking really fast to see, so like a 3-day at $3.15 at our high school rate would be $9.45, and a $3.15 at
4 days is $12.60. So those are kind of the two, like between a 3-day lunch and a 4-day. Just felt the amount we go, the threshold.
I think the other thing to consider there too is that generally when it's one kid, it's more than one kid in the family. It's usually 2 or 3 in the family, and then the $7 becomes $21 for a family, right? And so that just is something to consider when you think here too.
Didn't the price of school lunch just recently increase too though as well? Okay, has that been accounted in this? Okay. Wanted to-
And maybe that's what that was.
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss
Yeah, I'm
that.
so sorry. Yes, yep, 3:15 was the, and then that's high school, because elementary and elementary is different, so.
Good. Questions? Answer?
I like going with the 9. What did you say, 9?
9:45, so 10 even, 10 to
Yeah,
9,
about
like a $10 straight class.
Okay. Next policy is chemical use in buildings.
This is a new policy. We don't currently have one. However, in talking with Julie, this is one of those mandated policies simply to talk about it. The part that I want to bring your attention to is underneath at the bottom, it just says outline here the steps the employees will take. The steps are listed in your board docs, but basically we would be referring to our flip charts that I have here. And it's just teacher and staff, it's broken up the teacher and staff responsibility, administrator responsibility, and that will be laid out in there as well, and we can also refer the teachers right to their emergency procedures, which I will give credit to Mr. DeFries and Officer Knapp, who spent a lot of time helping putting these together.
Looks nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can just pick up whatever you want in there. And the fun part about it too is, they take them with them. And so if they have something they can hold up and need help, or they can fold up and all clear. So it's easy. Everything's right at your fingertips. It correlates with our safety manuals.
What's the yellow one say?
What's the yellow one says? Nothing. It's just a divider. So the reason that it has a divider is because it's all not tabbed, but it's set up at the different one, and then you have a fresh start.
And
Who do they all go to, those?
All of our teachers have them now.
Okay.
We are looking at, with the new school year, there are some, because we didn't have enough simply because of costs, to put one in every single room, even if it's not being utilized. But with, matter of fact, Officer Knapp, Mr. DeFries and I have a meeting this week to go over and just, because at the beginning of every year, we go through and look at our safety plan, and we want to make sure that everything is lined up with that. And then they're also looking at letting me know if we need some additional ones, and we're going to try to figure out how to get some more.
Looks good too.
Yeah, thank you.
Easier to use for sure.
Do you mind if we go back to the student meal account policy really quick? I just had one thing that I wanted to state, if you don't mind.
What is it?
Can we write a line in there about referring to our social worker to see if they can get the families with community partners, resources in the area? If we're seeing a pattern of them not coming to school with, money in their account.
I can work with Julie Slavens to see how that would play into that.
Because I know as a teacher at Washington previously, I worked with the social worker there. There was a student that needed glasses, and we worked with the social worker to work with Target to get him glasses. It worked out really well. I feel like just having that piece in there about the social worker working with the family, because sometimes when we call parents, you're doing 10 different things and you need to call the parent about the account, but maybe that might be something we see a pattern that the social worker should be involved in that to see if there's maybe something that we could do to support the family and provide some resources.
So I guess the one thing that I would ask in regards to that is that, because once we put something in policy, that will be there, and if we don't have social workers in each of our buildings, I'm just trying to think of the play, or is that part of the way that we respond? Because it does talk about the cafeterias will attempt to contact parents, although we don't even involve our administrators in that particular part.
So maybe more like a flow chart where the cafeteria worker reaches out first, then the social worker can reach out again if it's a pattern, and then the social worker could provide resources if they see that, there might be an issue there with the family just needing support.
I suggest you go to Ms. Slavens.
Yeah. And then, Ms. Bowersock, what we can look at that, if her recommendation is not necessarily to put it in policy, what we could look at is establishing administrative guidelines on how that would actually play out.
Next on the agenda, we have to go over the budget plan and questions before the hearing. Is that you? Are you taking?
Whatever you want to hear, you say, just stop.
It says questions before the hearing that we might
Oh,
have.
do you have questions before this? Got it, yes. Yes, so I guess I want to start with, kind of just going over this Form 9 summary sheet first. So this would be last year's Form 9. So I think, so we submit the Form 9 every 6 months. So that last 6 months is attached there as well. But I think it makes more sense to look at it over a year's time than a 6 month period. It's just really costly. The receipts are made. So in the education fund, we had a gain of $315,608. Just an asterisk there that includes $158,251 for curricular support materials. So those were things that were dedicated to that topic that need to be set aside. The operations fund had a gain of $274,618, and that's really the gain of $127,000. So that kind of breaks down for the education fund, 61% to regular programs, 6.5% to special programs, 0.1% for summer school, 0.2% for remediation, just under 7% for special ed and CTE. Under 5% for support services for our students, that's our student service specialists, guidance counselors, and our nurses. And then just over 1% for media aids and the library costs. General admin was 10%, curricular materials was 1%, and then our BCA extracurricular or curricular after school kind of activities were just 1%. And then the transfer was 6.4% of the budget. The operations fund, our general admin, which is our board, our superintendent, things like legal fees or supplies and kind of the association fees that we belong to, was just under 9%. Central services, which is our business office, our tax and some of our licenses for our software, was just under 13.5%. Our operations and maintenance, which would include our custodians, our maintenance managers, supplies for maintenance and our maintenance contracts, as well as our property and casualty insurance, our security services and supplies, was 53%. Our student transportation was about just under 18%. And then game workers and athletics was about 1% of that budget as well, or that total expenditures as well. Capital projects was about 5%, and then our copy machines was another 1%. So our percentage of teacher salary and benefits that went to tuition support came out to 69.86%. Remember, the threshold for that requirement is 65%. And then our transfer from education to operations was 6.45% of tuition support, which again, can go up to 15% of that. Are there any questions on that part? We go. Okay, so kind of looking at the budget for next year. So remember, when we're looking at expenses for the budget, that is kind of just setting the maximum threshold that we want to spend or asking for those expenditures. When we're looking at the revenue for our education fund, we have some big changes from last year. Again, we're estimating around 2202 students, 2002 students, or 2,202 students, which is down 110 students from last year. That ABM count is not finalized until October 1st, so there's still transfers in and out happening at this point, but that is our best estimate at this point. So the tuition support did increase per student. However, with having less students, we're going to receive less money overall. There's also no longer a separate deposit for curriculum materials. So when we did the 2025 budget, we expected a deposit in December of 2025 for curriculum materials. That deposit will not happen in one lump sum. It's rolled into our tuition support. So it'll happen monthly now, but that means only half of it. So yeah, half of it is put into 2025 and the other 2026. That's different than what we budgeted for last year. So when I talk about tuition supports, remember that's the basic grant, also our academic performance grant, special education grant, CTE, NESP, and then the curriculum materials support goes in there. So we are expecting just under $800,000 less in revenue in the education fund this year than we had last year. So
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I just had one question, because you had said that there was an increase per student, but since we have our enrollment is down, what was the increase per student?
It's about, with taking into account the curriculum support, it's just a little over $100 a student.
Okay, so it was like 7,500 before, and now it's like 70.
It was 60, the basic amount was 68.81.
Okay.
It went up. It went up to, I think, 71 something, 71.48, but that takes into account that curriculum support that is no longer coming in that one lump sum payment that's now in that amount. So for expenses, we are requesting to have the budget remain the same as it was last year at $18,499,000. And then the transfers included would be $20,899,000. Just some of the expenditure changes. Remember, we added a student service specialist. We added the athletic trainer slash CTE position. We did have, with class sizes, just naturally some reduction in classes that provided some vacancies that weren't necessarily filled. A couple of those. We have a 6% increase in our insurance costs for next year. And then we know we need to do an ELA adoption next year. We did not do a full adoption or anything this year. We kind of did some health and miscellaneous stuff, but we did not do a full adoption, which is going to be a big cost when we look at that to next year. Any questions on the education fund?
Have we done anything to cut back on some of the things such as, I know that we had gotten some feedback about the STEM teachers, maybe putting them back into the classrooms. Is that reduce class sizes and not affect our budget?
It is something that could be done, but that's not anything that we did not reduce those. We still have 2 STEM teachers.
There's 2. Okay, I wasn't sure if there's 2 or 3 right now.
There's just
Okay, so there's
STEM 2.
I would just hate to hear that, we have, the community has been, and I know myself included in this last year was concerned about my own child's class size was very large last year. And when we're looking at these other positions, you know, STEM positions that didn't exist before, I know that I believe we created those to, you know, in an effort to by attrition, but some teachers left and there's been some vacancies that weren't refilled. I know that I've heard from constituents that they would like to see more teachers in the classroom as opposed to the extra STEM. So that's something that the board would like to consider.
Well, that's what would be the recommendation from the needs of the schools, right? Well, how many more teachers do we need, do you think?
Well, and that's something that if the board were going to consider that, I would recommend that doing that for next school year as opposed to the school year that's already started.
How many students are we down? 200?
No,
110.
110, okay. I must have been impressed with it too.
Well, I think the point was made at a previous meeting, right, where we have these two teachers who are impacting how many students?
all
STEM
of the
program?
elementary.
All of the elementary versus
Correct.
adding two teachers back into one elementary school or two different elementary schools to impact. And it would impact the 80 in the class or there were. So we'll
We're
look at it.
closer to 50 to 60. We do have
Yeah.
a class of 84.
Okay.
But if you look at the averages and stuff, most of our class sizes are about 60-ish.
Okay.
Is what we're graduating.
Yeah, but if we're focusing on literacy skills and those types of things, these students aren't going to be able to participate meaningfully in STEM if those fundamental things, reading, writing, are not, you know, so I'm not sure if we should be looking at it as a standpoint of how many students it's affecting. If it's negatively impacting, you know, 10 students, that's too many, in my opinion.
Sure. If you're talking about reading though, I think it was in the paper last week where we were the second highest in Northwest Indiana with like a 97% high reading passage this past year.
I have to look at those numbers. If you could send those to me.
Maybe it was 96. No, it was,
I can look and back
Yeah, it
up
was
to
in the
the
paper.
exact number. Sure.
Well, and STEM offers a great opportunity to engage with the reading and the writing in a different format than the traditional classroom, right? It might engage people in a different way. I hear your point, and I don't discount that even 10
sure.
matter, but it's just another way to try and engage with the students, I feel. But it's something we could look at for next year.
Sure. And the other part is that it all depends on how you look at STEM. If you look at STEM as just another, like a specials, which is not, it's actually a way of, it's a thought process, problem solving, that is cross-curricular, that helps at higher order of thinking and working on problem solving as opposed to just rote memorization. So that's one of the reasons why we've looked at implementing that, and we increased our STEM opportunities at the middle school and high school as well.
I also kind of appreciated, just up to this point, that it's kept us competitive. I know a lot of my friends' children go to other schools also that offer that. And again, I'd definitely be happy to look back at it and see input and feedback from students and what it looks like. But I think it also helps us be competitive with our local schools with something that has been offered to others. You know, and then continue to look at each year to see.
Just to add, our iRead scores for the district were 97.6%.
How are they at each school though? Because I know that each school has a different.
I'd have to look it up, but they were all right there together. Washington Township, I believe, was the top. Together.
As we have one of our third grade teachers in the room.
That's good to hear though. I mean, that's some pretty high scores. We want to be 100%, but 97 is
7.6.
97.6 would be a 98 in my class.
All right, so while she looks it up, let's kind of move on to the operations fund. So again, some changes here, especially was Senate Enrollment Act 1. The biggest difference in our revenue is going to be the credits that were given to many homeowners this year. And so that is affecting both our operations and debt service fund. So that will decrease our revenue from property taxes in the operations fund approximately $359,000 and $486,000 to debt service. That's a big hit to our both of those funds, and they kind of would work hand in hand. So our balance in the debt service fund is, like I said, it's about $2 million, but when we look at that reduction, we can only levy for our payments on those bonds. So if we don't get that money to make those payments, then it has to come from a different source if we deplete that money in that fund, which would likely be operations. And then our max levy is just under $5.3 million. So remember, MITQ is capped at 4% growth. So that would put us our max levy at $5.3 million. We've been able to maintain our investment policy and our investments that we have, definitely investments, but our different accounts that we have, our interest rates, we've been able to get between 3 and 4.5% interest the last 8 months of this school year or of this calendar year. So that has helped with some of those costs of that fund. Let's see. And then, so for the expenses, we're looking at we're trying to cut $750,000 out of our operations fund for next year. So to be able to do that, there's some things we really have to look at. You know, our bonding process has allowed us to do all of our capital projects and those kind of purchases out of the bond funds. We have a copier lease that is up at the end of this year. So that's about $80,000 a year. So if we, been in talks with that company about maybe making purchases or keeping the equipment that we have and just kind of purchasing a maintenance agreement for that. And so that will help us save more. Those will be some things that will come up throughout the year to approve. We know our utilities, all of our utilities are electric or gas or water, everything is up 20% at least. We're not purchasing buses through the operations fund. We can do that through our bonds, which we again, so we run the last 2 years of buses. And then, our legal fees have increased significantly, as well as our insurance quote, we believe will be about 25 to 30% higher with those costs that are coming to the legal action. And then just our rainy day fund, again, we budget some money in that fund should we need it, but we have not spent any money out of that fund since 2019. Any other questions? The actual budget forms may change slightly because they have a meeting with our ELD rep on Wednesday, so depending on how she tells me, especially with these credits, it was kind of different entering those into our budget this year, so that may change things slightly. But right now, with our tax rate, it would be just under 86 cents. Last year, we budgeted just under 82 cents. But between 2019 and 2024, we've been between 88 and 94 cents. So I think we're in a good spot, not increasing it significantly.
And the state average tax rate is
It's a little over $1. Or right around $1, just a little over.
A lot of work, Ken. We appreciate the information that you've given us here. Okay, ready to move on to the next item is the MOU with Rec League and athletic fields.
So, and I know I've already brought the MOU in front of the board, and because as I gently reminded. We've had this discussion and then I remembered, yes, because we talked about alternatives to weed control. So that helped remind me on that particular one. So really, there's just a couple things that I need to get cleaned up in there. I know there's been some changes with like a lawnmower. We talked about making sure that it's clear that the school owns it, but working with the rec leagues to maintain the fields. And I know there's been some conversation, the board has graciously accepted the donation from the rec league, which helped purchase a lawnmower. So I'll work with Mr. Fields and the rec league to get that up. But I would like to use this as an opportunity to discuss some of our athletic fields. As you know, we had some people raise some concerns about a soccer field at Morgan Township. We've been looking at the Celts baseball field, which has some significant challenges to it. And during conversation with our Morgan Township principal, I found out that their baseball team has started looking at their infield as well because there's some questions and just doing that. So what I want to do is there's an individual who does some field work in schools around us, but also does some major league parks and that. And I'm going to reach out to him to just take a walk and look at our different fields to say, hey, what do we really need to do? What are wants, necessities, dreams, and then start prioritizing because, you know, each individual campus, their field's most important to them and their campus. Knowing that we do have limited resources and trying to spread it amongst all three campuses, you know, because I have heard from multiple people that our Celts baseball field is probably the one that has the greatest need at this particular point in time. I'm hearing some very similar things about the baseball field at Morgan Township, as opposed to, even though I'm trying to think about the best way to say this, the concerns that have been brought to us as a whole has been about the soccer field. And talking with the building, the soccer field isn't, the baseball field will come first before the soccer field, simply because of safety concerns and issues. And so instead of having that, I'm looking at bringing somebody else from the outside saying, all right, give us an objective view of the different fields that we have, and then we can start putting a priority list of which ones to look at and start getting needs as opposed to just doing it from the ones that we hear the loudest.
To be continued.
To be continued. So,
It looks like there's signatures needed for this. Is that for tonight or?
not at all. This is just, there's no action or anything along those lines, just informational purposes, and we'll work on that, and that'll come to the board in a business meeting, and then the board will be able to take action at that particular point in time.
Can you explain to me a little bit more about the memorandum? Sorry, I don't pronounce this right. Memorandum of understanding when you're talking about partnerships and things like that. Are we talking about Washington Township specifically? There's the Little Rose Field it's considered township property. The Little League Field is considered township property. Are we talking about partnering and having the school staff maintain those fields?
So the property actually belongs to the school. They do not belong to the township. They do not. The school actually built them. Matter of fact, when it was constructed as a baseball field. When you're talking about.
Right, I know which one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that was built by the district.
Okay, so because the reason I asked that is because there was some issues with the bathrooms by the soccer fields. They were saying that for township events, such as a little league or a little girls softball game, they wouldn't open the bathrooms because that's school property. And then the little girls field was township property. And I can tell you, because I'm a coach right now for a ball league, and that field is unplayable right now. It's just, I mean, I can show you pictures, it's pretty bad. So I didn't send it to the school because I thought that was township property.
Sure. And the way that it's been set up and designated is, even though it's owned by the school, the township upkeeps it. And so therefore, that's what the whole MOU is for, simply to establish who's going to do what so that it's in writing as opposed to clear up those blurred lines.
Okay, so the township will be the ones to maintain that field, but they're owned by the school.
Correct.
Does that sound, I know that Mr. Martin, you and I have talked about that before, when we've talked about,
The school owns the ground, the townships develop the fields. So now the townships are responsible for the fields,
okay, okay,
but this school corporation owns the ground.
okay,
And they work with collaboration with the school, like they can't go in and rip it all up without talking to the school because we do own it,
okay.
even though that has happened in the past.
I remember.
Yes. And then they didn't have the money to finish it. And so then it created quite the,
I
The
coached that
challenge.
year too, so I remember.
so, but yes, and so, and it's, this one specifically talks about Washington Township. However, we are looking at being very similar to what we do at Morgan Township because Washington and Morgan both have little league fields that are utilized, but still owned by the district.
Okay. So with the field currently being unplayable, who would be the contact for that?
My guess is Deb Armstrong's in charge of that, the rec league.
And Mr. Roberts spent the weekend reconditioning that field.
Okay.
Do we, sorry, just one more question. Do we have any kind of trends on the cost of upkeep for fields like year over year? Or like, sorry, Kim, I know,
I mean, we don't pay for a lot of that out of our
Correct.
could the township maintain them?
township or the athletics pays for a lot of that.
Okay, so it would just come out of the athletics.
Are you specifically talking about the rec league fields or just fields in general?
Fields in general.
Yeah, most of that comes out of the athletic funds at the individual schools. Periodically, we will do some major upgrades. I know that we've paid for some reseeding at Washington Township in regards to the soccer fields. I know that we've done some work on irrigation systems. We've redone all 3 tracks.
Right,
Yeah, and so it's just works through the
Just looking
capital project.
yeah, looking at like a 5-year plan to see what kind of trend.
That's what we
comes up
want,
with, that
yes.
kind of thing.
We do not have anything along those lines, and that's why I want to start looking at the different fields so that we can, so when people come and say, well, here's the issue, there's a plan in place as opposed to them feeling that they're just getting brushed off.
Okay, the athletic funds that come through the education fund or operations? How does that?
Fields?
Yeah.
Would be operations.
Okay.
If we did any. But we're bond monies.
Right.
We would likely do a bigger project from, like that's the tracks came out of bond.
Okay. Thank you.
Insurance. We had some like insurance claims, we had to do some right damage, but
Yeah,
other than that, I haven't really, since I've been here.
Short work session, we don't vote to adjourn, but if there's no other business,
So I have to,
I would adjourn the meeting then. Have the board members stick around for an executive session. That's a lot.
oh, yeah, for the board, thank you for the reminder. There were some packets. Those packets are to replace what you already have in your school board binder, just the updates.
Thank you for coming.